Hi, Sally Foley-Lewis here again with another fantastic Spark self-leadership video. And I'm joined today by Sarah Markey-Hamm, who is the CEO of ICMS. And I'm so delighted to pick the brains of our senior leader from the events industry and learn her thoughts and her insights and experiences around self-leadership. So welcome to Spark, Sarah.
Thank you, Sally. Thanks for having me.
My absolute pleasure. Now, first of all, ICMS. Who are you? What are you? What do you do?
We are known in the world as a professional conference organizer or PCO. So our role is basically to take the pain out of events for our clients, whether they be virtual, hybrid, face-to-face, although, who would have thought 12 months ago we would have virtual and hybrid higher up in the food chain than face-to-face, but that's the world that we're living in now. Our company is a family business. Cut a very long story short, my parents rented a room in a house that they bought their first house to a company that was doing trade missions, one of the first companies doing trade missions, so taking Australian businesses overseas, and rented one of the rooms out to this company. They were both radiographers, met at the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne nearly 100 years ago, but not quite. And Dad had realised then that, there wasn't great fame and fortune in being a radiographer. So started to work for the company just before I was born. And then the man who actually owned the business at that time offered the Melbourne to Dad because he was quite unwell, and the Sydney one he kept on his own. So we have been under the one ownership since 1972. And my sister and I are in the business. She looks after our finances and office manager type of tasks. And one of her children comes in and works a couple of days a week while she's at uni. So it is very much the quintessential family business.
Oh, I love that. And I love that there's history. So I saw the photo on the website. So your dad?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Love it. I love seeing those sorts of things. I think that it excites me even more to talk about self-leadership with you, particularly when you've been, number one, you're in an industry that has been so significantly, and that's an understatement, impacted by COVID. But there's also this family business kind of element that goes with it, which, the family businesses are, there's not a lot compared to the number of businesses out there. So it'd be really interesting to hear your insights into self-leadership from both those angles. So thank you. So let's just jump in.
Okay.
Define for me, in your own words, what do you call or what to you is self-leadership?
And look, and Sally, I've been thinking about these and letting them all sit in my head since, for a couple of days. But to me, self-leadership is that drive that you have and that sense of responsibility to go forward. And, there's been a few other things that have been occurring in my volunteer world in the last couple of weeks. But, that leadership of actually not being afraid of really either taking people on a journey or not being afraid to say the things that other people aren't prepared to say, and sticking with what is actually right. And, and I've had lots of instances of that occurring over the last month with one of the voluntary organisations that I'm on, that I have now realised that my role on this committee is to actually say the things that everybody wants to say, because they're very happy to support, but they're just getting it either from their brain to their mouth or their brain to their fingers to put it in a response, because this is international, so its time frame is a little unusual. But to actually say those things, to make sure that, to use a bit of a cliche, living your own truth.
Right. It sounds like willing to stick your neck out or be the voice.
Yeah, and it's also about integrity.
Yes.
Too. I'm really, these days people would probably call that personal branding, but people who have known me for, I've been full-time in the family business for 28 years, that people who know me know that I really haven't been any different. I'm not afraid to say what needs to be said. Okay, sometimes Life before children, I probably delivered it a lot worse than what I can deliver it now, but that's maturity, I suppose. But I'm not afraid to say it, because I believe so strongly in doing the right things, and that's where that self-leadership comes in. You've got to actually do the right thing regardless of whether anybody's looking, and that's that whole definition of integrity that and we're in as a PCO, we're in a very special position that our clients actually trust us to manage their budgets, and those budgets can be millions of dollars. So we need to make sure that we're above reproach with whatever we're doing, so that we're not we have that trust, and they're looking to us for guidance. So you have to actually be a leader to take them on that on that journey and give them that guidance. Yes, it's a lot of mechanic and a lot of grunt work, but it's that big picture thinking, and and especially last year is getting clients through what was COVID and what was the absolute decimation of the business events industry.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think your point there about that integrity piece, and then also the piece about, it is the grunt work. So, you've got to be able to get into the mud with everyone else and just keep on pushing and get through, because there is a massive big end goal that your clients expect you to achieve. I think those two with the integrity are enmeshed completely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you. So when it comes to self-leadership, what do you think the impact self-leadership does have on elements like courage, influence, and confidence for leaders?
It is one of those things that you take a bit of time to realize what the position that you're in. And in the last couple of years, I have been doing some work with a coach, and I've also undertaken a coaching course to actually be a coach myself. But a lot of the cohort that I was learning with want to take up coaching as either their side hustle or their new career, because they want a bit of a life change, whereas I was doing it to actually become a better leader. And to work with my team to actually coach and lead rather than manage. And over the summer, I was listening to a really great book about CEOs and what are the 5 key roles that you should be doing. And one of the first things that came out about managing people is that you actually have to coach them, not manage them. So the skills that I've learnt over this time coaching gives you a different perspective to how you actually communicate with people. And look, it's even client interaction as well as team members interaction. It's everybody that you're dealing with. If you're taking it from a different position of being curious rather than being assertive or being aggressive, you're actually going to get a lot more out of people.
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah. And it's a beginner's mind kind of game, isn't it? Where even though you might know the answer, which is the best strategy here, get it from them and explore that and allow them to bring forth what they want and what they need, and articulate, or even let them fumble through to articulate rather than give and tell.
And the thing is that people aren't going to grow unless they go on those discovery tours themselves. And it is one of those things that when you have children, you actually watch them fall off their bike and picking themselves up and what they learn from them. We don't, there's a whole lot of cliches and sayings that are all over social media about, there's no, about no success from just being good at everything, from being perfect. It's always about what you learn from the times that you don't get it right, rather than the times that you do get it right.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, definitely. And that's that, it's on the other side of the pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I wish it wasn't so, but that's the way it is, isn't it? So
you can't change it. You just have to deal with it.
Exactly. Yeah. So when we're in a position then of being the leader, what's the value that confidence and courage and influence has when you're working with a team and you're working with the clients, how do you mesh those up together?
I think the confidence gives you the impetus to be the leader.
Mm.
And there is some truth in the whole fake it till you make it type scenario where, and the analogy I can draw is that during last year when we had our clients not knowing what was going to go on, we didn't know what was going to happen, and there was a lot of fear.
Yes.
So
yeah,
I took our role as not only to be an innovator and say, right, well, this is what we're doing. Let's explore and see what virtual events can do and bring them on the journey with us. And we did a lot of testing and showing and communicating with our clients all the way through, just so they could actually start to touch and feel, so they could learn it. But that confidence, if I went in there and go, oh my God, the world's coming to an end, then that's not going to give them a lot of confidence. You're not actually being a leader. And regardless of how I'm feeling inside, there were very few moments in a professional sense, either in the office with the team or with clients, then they actually could see that. I mean, it was almost this time last year when the walls just came down, and I'd had negative conversation after negative conversation the entire Friday, and it got to a point, and I went to go somewhere, and I was listening in my car, and I had a voicemail from one of the dads I'm on a committee with at my son's school, just ringing to say, I'm thinking of you, this must be terrible, I hope you're okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, right. And I said, right, girls, we're going for a drink. So we went to the wine bar up the street, finished a bottle of rosé, got home, and when I got in the door, that's when I lost it.
Yes.
And it was a complete hysteria that my children had no idea, because I don't cry like that very often, but or ever really, but that was the complete despondency of what the hell am I going to do?
Yes. And I know there's more to this, but I just want to jump in there. And what I want to acknowledge you for sharing is that it's not about not having the emotions, and it's not about never allowing yourself to have that break and a good old cry or or be hysterical. It's actually about being able to regulate your emotions for the right time, and then when you can release that and actually be true to yourself, which is back to your integrity point. You needed to let that go, and that's how it flowed out of you. So I really thank you. I want to acknowledge that, because I think that comes back to leading oneself, self-leadership, in a really healthy way. So what did you do to reignite and turn it around, and what are the lessons?
Well, I went to a friend's place and watched the footy, and I had a bottle of wine and screamed at the TV because my team wasn't doing that well that night. But look, I think when everything started to calm down, we then got into an active mode. And serendipitously, I had decided to change registration providers at the end of 2019. I had some staff movement, so the people that were resistant to change had left. So I felt I actually, sometimes you almost want to go the line of least resistance, because it's too hard to affect change all the time. And, maybe that's a sign of leadership, that you just know which battles to have. And at that time, it was no point having that battle, because the negativity and all the rest of it would have killed the momentum for everybody else. But because I had that freedom, I made that decision. And the company that we went with, we had already started planning training that week.
Oh wow!
On onboarding the software. So there was our Labor Day long weekend. There was I think I did about 20 hours of pre-study that you had to do online before you get there, and then we were doing this training in the new system. So we were then talking about how we're going to integrate, bring the old information into the new information. And then they started to talk about their virtual event platform that they were writing. So we then started to see that. And then when they got it to a certain point, and all credit to them, they involved their customers in all the testing.
Good.
So, they wanted us to try and break it because they knew that that's what our delegates would actually do. So to be involved from that really grassroots beginning stage and seeing it grow, and then being able to give our clients some hope. And I think that was a lot of it. It was actually about a bit of hope and going, okay, how are we going to do this? What can we show? And that is really that point in time of taking people on that journey and letting them feel and see how it could actually work. Because quite often with doing a demonstration of the virtual portal and what we can actually do with it, people need to touch and feel it a couple of times.
Yes.
Because, you need to let it sit in your brain and think about it, and then you'll get that light bulb moment and go, okay, we can do this, 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 and this. And that's the stage that we worked through with all of our clients last year.
Yeah.
And just being, and I mean, the other side of it too, Sally, is that, contractually we could have had all of our clients on get our full fees. Contractually is doing one thing, morally is doing something else.
Yeah.
And,
yes.
And at the very beginning, when it was nobody really knew how big this was going to be. Some of the behaviour from certain venues and all those kind of things, that's when you learnt who you'd want to work with long term, and how people behaved in that real moment of crisis was really about who you'll then work with long term.
Yeah, so some true colour moments, yeah.
Absolutely.
And I guess that just, again, it comes back to, what's driving the decision maker in those environments where they're not willing to even meet you halfway or say, look, if we give you back this is what happens to us. Can we have a conversation? When they don't even enter into that, you sort of wonder, okay, well, is that your decision or is it from above? And where is the in the decision maker's frame of mind, and then in the frameworks, where is their self-leadership? Yeah.
And I also, and it also worked both ways. When I thought some clients' requests were unreasonable, I would go to them and say, look, I think this is what they've asked for. I don't think that's good cricket. So let's come to another position where everybody feels as though that they're all winning, so to speak, but nobody feels like they're being, ripped off. And I think that was a real achievement from last year, is to be able to get people through that point. It's actually now giving us opportunity to do more with the clients that we have rather than less.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they're now embracing the virtual. I mean, we all know we want to go back to face-to-face. I mean, that's a no-brainer. But how we actually get people there, because there will be people who will never want to do face-to-face again. They may have a form of PTSD and all those kind of things with this whole year. But the other beautiful thing about it is that, virtual and streaming sessions and conferences is not a new thing.
No.
But a lot of events and a lot of clients didn't ever want to go down that road because of the cost of bringing it down that road. So if any of the silver lining we can get out of here is that they, come out at a reasonable price, but they also get the reach. And that's the nice thing, is that they actually, it opened up opportunities to delegates and to their members, because most of the work that we do is with associations. So member outreach is really important. But there are people from country Victoria who have never been able to go to the face-to-face event because they wouldn't get leave, but they could go to the virtual one. And because our platform has integration and people can actually catch up online and not having to go to a different, to their phones or whatever, they have been able to connect with other people.
Yeah. So from when, say, COVID hit, there's that there's that coping in the moment, and then there's that letting go piece for you, that you needed to just have a good cry and get it sorted for yourself. But then there's, which and if people deny that they didn't hurt in some way, then I'd have a good hard question with them about that. But then what I loved is that you went into activity. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've been hearing about. When an event strikes and we need to reignite our self-leadership, when we need to reignite our own spark around what it is to do, there's a step into activity. And particularly when it's activity that's not about us, we get out of our heads, we get back into service, we get back into core business, or we get back into asking the question about what is our core business now, or how can we make this work. I think that's a really good lesson to take away about what we as leaders can do when something hits, when something happens. So yeah, I think that's amazing. And you've been able to deliver. The other thing is, I think there's a leveraging piece in this as well, because as we stay in a hybrid environment or stay within an offering that's more visible, that is a hybrid opportunity or a hybrid offering, we've got more competitors coming into the market that's going to make these platforms more accessible for more people, which I think is fantastic. And so, you're in a situation where you can make sure that you're staying ahead of the game. You're listening to your clients and making sure that that influences what your offering can do, which I think is really cool.
And I think one of the critical parts of self-leadership is to critically assess what you're doing after every time you've done it.
Definitely.
You've got to learn each time. And, and it was interesting. It was a matter that had gone on with my son at school last week. And 90% of the issue was the way in which something was communicated with him, that the emotional intelligence of the people communicating this message to him didn't read him, didn't went the same way that they would with every boy, rather than. And I thought, I've got 18 months left. I'm just going to say it. And said to them that, this is not this is what's happened. And the response from the teacher was, well, I hope he'll understand his, our position, and he'll get some good life skills out of it. And I went back and said, well, I hope everyone can learn something from this.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not, relationships are not one-sided. And this is where, in our business, we're in the relationship and the communication game.
Yes.
And that relationship and the communication is not just with your core clients. Every delegate that comes through your door is a customer. And, we're entrusted to actually approach our clients' customers with their ethos rather than necessarily our ethos.
Well, you're representing their ethos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, what might be our policy and what might be their policy, provided we've actually explored all options and the client makes the decision with every possible ramification, presented to them. And if they've made the decision, well, then that's their decision. We may not like it, we may not agree with it, but we respect it and we keep going.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's one of the things that's, when it comes to, values alignment in a lot of ways, is that I don't have to like it, but as long as you're consistently operating in a value that I understand that you're operating in, then I can either decide better to work with you or be really clear about not working with you, but at least it's consistent. It's that inconsistency where I think people get themselves into trouble. And I think what I'm hearing you say is that, you've got a process where you make sure the client is briefed on everything that you can think of. And that's within your, and you've got a lot of experience, 20 something years, we said you're in the game. But you're not a day over 21. So, that tells the client, look, here are the options, here are the risks, here are the potential outcomes. Let's make a decision. And I think that consistency will always add to that layer of trust that people can have with you, because that, again, it's values aligned.
Oh, and it was one of the factors when I decided to downsize the business rather than be a massive organization, was that I wanted to have that contact with clients on a day-to-day thing. I wanted to be able to have that time to go to the committee meetings, and thank God for Zoom, because I wouldn't have been able to get to all of them in a face-to-face world. But anyway, but to have that connection with them, because they're entrusting the business that I'm entrusted to run to make them look good.
Yes.
And to put on a product and to carry their ethos. I mean, we have one client where he is so flexible on cancellations and all those kind of things. It nearly kills me. But, you know, his whole philosophy is that we need to keep the goodwill, so they'll remember that the next time we come out with something, that they will just automatically buy it. So this week, we had an email from one of the delegates, and this is another postponed event that we've done things with the delegates who paid and kept their money with the conference last year, and we're putting on something. If they'd registered and paid for the conference last year, they're getting the online symposium that we're doing this year for free. And there was this one delegate who said, look, I really need the cash, but I'm happy to give, you know, can I get half my money back? Not, I don't want to get it all back, but can I have half? So I just emailed her and said, look, well, why don't we just give you a one-day registration rather than anything else? You still get to see the symposium, you still get the access. And then when you're ready to pay the balance, we'll give it to you at the rate you originally paid for.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I get this, I mean, it's a very socially aware group anyway, but you get this lovely warm glow when people come back and say, oh, that is just fantastic. Thank you very much. The conference in 2018 was the best week of my life.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I just forwarded it to the client for no other reason other than because he's so well known in their sector, if she'd actually made contact with him directly, he would actually know what the hell he's done. And I just went, going on with your, you know, whole thing of goodwill. This is what I've done. Hope you're okay.
Yes.
But that's a level of trust
that
you have to earn. It's not something to be given straight away.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's something, you know, where that self-leadership comes in too, is that trust. You have to recognize that you have to earn people's trust, and once it's gone forever.
Yeah. And I think if you're not in alignment with your own values and you don't know who you are, so that self-awareness piece, then you can very quickly become inconsistent in your behavior, in your words, in your actions, and how you do business. And then that impacts trust. Because you're sitting there going, who am I getting today? What am I getting today? So yeah, thank you. So look, Sarah, I could speak with you all day long, and I'm pretty sure we probably will have more conversations. So I have one more question to ask you, if that's okay, and that is, what do you wish you knew about self-leadership when you first stepped into a leadership role? Did I say that? Self-leadership. What did you want to know about self-leadership when you first stepped into a leadership role?
Interesting, and it's a really good question, because having started my work life in the 80s, and where women were expected to behave a certain way to actually get where they were, there were two main messages I learned: that what somebody says to you, it says more about them than it does about you.
Yes.
And the other thing was actually using the fact that I'm female and using the innate qualities that being female is and gives you to get to the result. You don't have to pretend to be a man to get where you are.
Oh, love it.
Behave like a man.
Yeah, love it. Thank you, Sarah. That is just gold. So, you know, you don't have to be anything other than you. You know, being a woman in this world is more than enough. And oh gosh, I've just lost the first one. What did you just say?
It says about you. What somebody said, yeah.
What somebody says about you is more about them than yourself. So thank you. I totally agree. You can, you know, so that projection piece is really important. I mean, it's, you know, you got to learn to not take the sting so much, but remember that it's more about them than you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Any final words before we wrap up our Spark Self-Leadership video today?
Well, I think about self-leadership is you can never stop learning.
Yeah.
And you need to actually be open enough with yourself to realize what your qualities are. And, not everybody's perfect and nobody is perfect. So you just run with it and concentrate on the bits that you want to work on, not what everybody else is telling you to work on.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I totally agree. I think that this whole idea of being a lifelong learner means that we're on this journey. And I think you said before about a self-tour, and I thought life was a tour. And I thought I liked that idea. I don't want a journey. I want a tour. And so, but I agree. And I see it as being this lifelong learning for ourselves and our self-awareness. It never stops. There's always going to be an experience that will challenge us. And so it's about giving ourselves permission to be open to say is this sitting in front of me an opportunity to learn and have that growth mindset, or shall I be fixed and closed about this? And I'm always going to choose open, even if it hurts, because I think that, as we both talked about, it's on the other side of that pain is where the growth lies. So yeah.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
That's a pleasure.
So sorry, I cut you off. Did you have one more comment?
No, I'm all good.
All right. Thank you, Sarah, the CEO of ICMS, Sarah Markey-Hamm. Thank you. And I am so excited to have spent this time with you. And I look forward to another Spark Self-Leadership video coming to you very soon. Bye for now.